My name's Wes, and apparently, I committed the unforgivable crime of not wanting to wear a tie to work. No, seriously. That's how it all started. I was 17 when I told my parents I was applying to trade school. Mom blinked like I just told her I joined a traveling circus. My dad? He slowly folded his newspaper and said, "So you're throwing your life away. Good to know." To them, plumbing was a fallback job for failures. Dumb people who like getting dirty. As my sister Casey so eloquently put it one Thanksgiving while I was literally fixing the garbage disposal mid-dinner. Casey, the queen of the family, was off at college in New York majoring in media studies, which I'm pretty sure is code for TikTok. She got care packages every month, handwritten notes from Mom, and little Starbucks gift cards slipped into her textbooks like love letters. Me? I got told I better start paying rent now that I was too good for a real degree. So I did. I paid rent. I also cleaned the gutters. I fixed the dishwasher when it clogged. I replaced their water heater after it burst one winter night, yes, without charging them. But every time I mentioned school, my school, Mom would sigh like she was physically exhausted and Dad would just shake his head. "You'll be nothing but a wrench boy," he muttered once while I was studying pipe fittings. I got tired of it. Tired of pretending I wasn't proud of what I was learning. Of tiptoeing around my family like plumbing was some dirty word. So I stopped tiptoeing. I leaned into it. At 19, I had my license. At 20, I was working under a master plumber, and making more than any of my friends from high school. Even the gifted ones. But the thing about family? They don't notice unless they want to. And mine? They didn't. Not even when I helped fix our elderly neighbor's broken toilet, and the guy left me a $300 tip and a bag of homemade cookies. My mom took the cookies, said thanks to the man, then turned to me and asked if I was ever going back to real school. Real school. I could have screamed. Instead, I started planning. Saving. Hustling. I worked evenings and weekends, doubled shifts, even helped a guy fix up an old rental house just to learn how to do drywall and flooring. My dream wasn't to prove them wrong. At least, not at first. It was just to get out. At 23, I put an offer on a small 2-bedroom fixer-upper on the edge of town. The porch was slanted, the basement smelled like sadness, and the backyard had an actual bathtub buried in the weeds. But it was mine. I didn't tell my family. Not even once. Because after years of being ignored, laughed at, and dismissed, I didn't need to hear, "Good job, Wes." I needed quiet. And for 6 months I got it. Peace. Work. Freedom. I even adopted a dog, Cody, a mutt with one floppy ear and a fear of thunder. But peace has a funny way of ending when you're finally starting to breathe. And it started with a phone call. From my mom. Which, in itself, was weird. We hadn't talked in over half a year. She didn't even text on my birthday. I figured she finally meant it when she'd said, "Don't come around here until you're ready to be serious." I was about to decline it when curiosity got the better of me. I answered. Her voice was sharp, panicked. "Wes, something's wrong with the house. There's water everywhere. Your father, he tried turning something, and now it's spraying." Then came the yelling. My dad's voice, muffled, swearing. A loud splash. I blinked. "Wait, why are you calling me?" There was silence. A long pause. Then, dead serious, she said, "Because the plumber we called said he's booked for 2 weeks. And we figured, you still fix toilets, right?" I stared at my phone like it had just called me dumb. "You still fix toilets, right?" That's what she said. As if I was some dog they'd left outside for a year, and just remembered could roll over on command. "Yeah," I said slowly. "I do still fix toilets. Professionally, actually." Mom didn't laugh. She was too panicked. "Wes, please. There's water everywhere. The guest bathroom's flooding. Your dad tried turning off the valve, but now it's gushing through the ceiling vent and dripping into the hallway. He's blaming the city, but the neighbor says it's probably a busted wax ring or a cracked flange." I blinked. "You learned the word flange?" We Googled it. I had 2 options at that moment. Hang up, let them drown in their own pride and sewage. Be the bigger person. I went with option 3, sarcasm. Well, I said, maybe ask Casey's boyfriend? He's a business major, right? Maybe he can negotiate the toilet into fixing itself. Wesley. Full name. She was serious. You're our last option. I should have felt victorious. Vindicated. Years of being mocked, ignored, disowned for choosing. Pipes over papers. And now suddenly they needed me? I should have gloated. But instead, I laughed. Loudly. I'll be there in an hour. When I pulled into the driveway, it was like stepping back into a sitcom set where everyone hates the main character. The house looked the same, except for the river of wet towels bleeding out the front door. I walked in and was immediately greeted by the scent of mildew, panic, and ego. Dad stood in the hallway barefoot, holding a wrench upside down like it was cursed. His pants were soaked to the knees. Wes, he said, as if unsure whether to thank me or blame me for being born. Wow, I said, nodding slowly. Really embracing the open floor plan concept, huh? He didn't respond. I stepped over a pile of dripping mop heads into the bathroom and nearly slipped. It was a disaster. Toilet water had flooded across the tile, soaked into the hallway carpet, and was dripping through the ceiling into the floor vent below. I surveyed it silently while they stood behind me like confused tourists watching a mechanic fix their flat tire with duct tape and rage. You tried turning the valve clockwise? I asked Dad. He nodded like he knew what that meant. I reached down, twisted it the correct direction, and the geyser stopped instantly. Silence. No more water. Just the sound of my mother's sigh and my dad muttering something under his breath that definitely wasn't. Thank you? Cracked flange, I said, tapping the toilet base. Probably been loose for months. You never noticed the wobble? Dad scoffed. Toilets wobble all the time. Doesn't mean they're broken. That's a solid quote, I said. Might stitch it on a throw pillow. I spent the next hour pulling the toilet, scraping up wax, disinfecting the mess, and replacing everything with the parts I'd brought just in case. Because yes, I was that prepared. Unlike the man who once glued a towel rack back on the wall and called himself handy. While I worked, they hovered. Quiet. Watching. And I realized this was the first time they'd ever actually seen me do what I do. Not just show up clean afterward, but in the middle of it. Tools out. Gloves on. Headlamp strapped tight. I wasn't just a plumber in their imagination anymore. I was their plumber. And they hated it. Casey FaceTimed halfway through, probably expecting to catch the flood. Instead, she saw me calmly resealing the base with fresh caulk. Wait. Wes is fixing it, she asked, hair in a towel. Didn't you guys, cut him off or something? My mom didn't answer. I gave a peace sign to the camera. Hey Case. Toilet still leaking up at NYU, or did your crypto king finally pay rent? She hung up. I smiled. When I finished, the house was dry again. I packed up my tools, threw away the evidence of their incompetence, and stood by the door. Don't worry, I said as I zipped my jacket. I won't charge you. My dad blinked. You won't? Nah. But next time? There's a travel fee. And emotional damages. And then I left. And as I walked back to my truck, I swear I heard my mom whisper. He really knows what he's doing. Like it was a revelation. After I left their house, soaked in second-hand ego and bleach fumes, I didn't go home. I parked outside a little cafe I'd helped remodel 2 months ago, replaced all their sinks, rerouted the drainage, even fixed the espresso machine's weird leak nobody could solve. The owner, Maria, now gives me free lattes like clockwork. So that day, I just sat there. Warm mug in hand. Hoodie still damp from their disaster zone. And I asked myself, why did I do it? Why didn't I just let them flood? Maybe because no matter how old you get, part of you still wants your parents to say, "We're proud of you." Spoiler, mine never did. Not when I passed my journeyman exam. Not when I launched my own small plumbing business at 24. Not even when I finally bought my house, The one they didn't know about, with the two-car garage, the shiny red toolbox, and the little W. Reynolds Plumbing and Repair magnet stuck on the breaker box like a quiet badge of honor. They still saw me as the kid who dropped out of real college after one semester. Funny how that one decision haunted them more than it ever haunted me. A week passed after the toilet incident. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd call. Say thanks. Ask how I'd learned all that. Maybe even apologize for years of jokes about being the family handyman? But no. Radio silence. Then, I got a Facebook notification. Casey had posted a Throwback Thursday photo. Her and Dad at her college graduation. Caption: Miss being back in the city with people who value education, Red Heart. The comments section? Full of extended family and church friends gushing about her drive and ambition. My name? Not mentioned once. No big deal. Just a mild slap to the face with a side of public erasure. I closed the app and got back to work. Because while Casey was out there building her brand through Instagram Reels, I was crawling through basements, patching up moldy drywall, replacing corroded copper lines, and getting handwritten thank you cards from old ladies who paid in cash and homemade pie. Not glamorous. Just real. About a month later, my phone buzzed with a new voicemail. It was Dad. And for once, he didn't sound angry. He sounded tired. Wes, it's your father. Look, I know things haven't been easy. But we've got another issue with the upstairs bathroom. Might be the pipes. Your mother said we should call a company, but I figured, if you're not too busy, maybe you could take a look? Maybe I could. But I didn't want to. Because the thing about people like my dad? They don't say sorry. They just offer you a broken sink and hope you'll forget the broken years. I didn't delete the message. But I didn't call back either. Instead, I drove to Home Depot, bought new tile, and started renovating my guest bathroom, because my house deserved it. Then came the real turning point. A guy named Chuck, an old buddy from trade school, called and asked if I'd be interested in co-investing in a duplex flip. Great structure, he said. Bad plumbing. That's where you come in. We teamed up. I spent weekends under crawl spaces and evenings running cost estimates. By month 3, the place was gutted and gleaming. Modern fixtures. Custom cabinets. Rainfall showerheads. And during the open house, a couple walked in, asking for a quick tour. My parents. I nearly dropped my clipboard. They didn't recognize me at first. I was wearing a polo. Clean. Professional. But then my mom squinted. Tilted her head. Her mouth parted slightly. Wes? I nodded. Dad looked like he'd been hit with a bag of bricks. This is yours? Chuck grinned and patted my shoulder. He designed the whole system. Plumbing's flawless. Honestly? The best work I've ever seen. They stood there, blinking. Processing. I thought you worked out of a truck. Dad mumbled. I do, I said. The truck just parks in front of the places I own now. Silence. Then Mom gave a nervous chuckle. Well, isn't that something? Yeah. It really was. They didn't stay long. Didn't ask more questions. But that day, something shifted. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't the dumb plumber in their eyes. I was something they didn't understand. And it scared them. Weeks passed. The duplex sold within 3 days. I took my cut, reinvested half into a second fixer-upper, and the rest? I used to finally upgrade my truck. Not flashy, just clean, reliable, and mine. I got the logo redone too. W. Reynolds Plumbing, crisp lettering, clean design, minimal flex. Meanwhile, my family didn't call. And that was fine. Until they did. It was 6:23 p.m. on a Thursday. I had just finished a job replacing a sewer line behind an elementary school. I smelled like despair and damp clay. Cody, my dog, was napping in the passenger seat, head against an empty box of sandwich wrappers. My phone buzzed. It was Casey. Now you have to understand, Casey hasn't called me directly since 2019. She prefers her drama via group chat and passive-aggressive emoji replies. But this time, she called twice. Then left a voicemail. I played it on speaker. Hey, Wes? It's me. Look, Mom and Dad had this situation. I guess the upstairs bathroom is leaking into the guest room and now there's water coming from the light fixtures. A pause. They tried calling some companies, but it's late, and the guy they usually use isn't answering. And we didn't know who else to call. She actually said it. We didn't know who else to call. Like I was some emergency contact on the family shame list. I didn't reply. Instead, I scrolled through my recent invoices, leaned my head back, and cracked open a cold orange soda. I deserved a moment. At 8:02 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time it was my dad. I nearly dropped the soda. Voicemail again. Wes. Look, I know this is awkward, but we've got an actual emergency here. Ceiling's leaking. We shut off the water, but the damage is spreading. If there's any way you could come, we'd really appreciate it. Those last 4 words? They weren't just rare. They were extinct. I showed up. Not because I owed them anything, but because honestly, I wanted to see it. Just once. I wanted to walk into their mess, fully in control. No lectures. No mocking jokes. Just me, the wrench boy, in full power mode. And oh, buddy, I was not disappointed. Their house looked like it had been through 3 storms and a toddler birthday party. There were buckets under the vents, towels lining the floor, and the unmistakable smell of soaked drywall, a scent every plumber knows like a bad ex's perfume. My mom opened the door, flustered. Hair pulled back, slippers squishing with every step. Wes, she said, almost breathless. Thank you for coming. I nodded, didn't smile. Dad was crouched in the hallway, trying to inspect the wall with a flashlight he clearly bought just for this crisis. Watch your step, he muttered like I was the amateur. I stepped around him and looked at the damage. One look at the water stains on the ceiling told me the problem wasn't just recent. It was old. Did you hear a drip before this? I asked. Mom hesitated. Well, there was a sound. But your father thought it was the neighbor's sprinkler system. Dad grunted. They water at night. Not through your ceiling, they don't. I got to work. This time, I didn't explain anything. No running commentary. No small talk. Just gloves on, flashlight up, tools out. Every few minutes, I heard them whispering in the hallway like confused parents watching a magician perform surgery on their finances. Then came the best moment. I asked if they still had access to the crawlspace under the house. Dad sighed. We blocked it off after the raccoon thing. What raccoon thing? Not important. I pried open a section of wall, crawled under, and within minutes found the problem. A slow leak in a rusted pipe, made worse by a lazy patch job from whoever had installed their new bathroom vanity 2 years ago. They'd ignored it. And now it was bubbling up through the floorboards. Classic. After I patched the line and replaced the ruined insulation, I climbed back up and tossed my gloves in a trash bag by the door. It's handled, I said. Mom opened her mouth, probably to say, thank you again, but Dad beat her to it. How much? I shrugged. No charge. Their eyes widened. But next time? I added, grabbing my tool bag. You can call someone who doesn't know what they're doing, since you trust those more. And I walked out. 3 days after the second flood rescue, I got a text from Casey. Not, thank you. Not, sorry for everything. Just, what kind of paint did you use for the bathroom? Mom liked it. I stared at it like it owed me money. There was no hi, no punctuation. Just a passive suggestion that I become their personal renovation hotline. So I did what any sane person would do. I left her on read. Truth is, I wasn't angry. I was done. Done trying to decode half-hearted apologies hidden in home repair requests. Done playing the family handyman when they never once treated me like family until their sink started screaming. So instead of answering, I went outside, sat on my newly rebuilt porch, and looked at my little house with fresh eyes. It wasn't fancy. No white picket fence or magazine kitchen. But it was mine. The stone steps? I laid them myself. The backyard shed? Built it with a buddy over 3 weekends. The living room? Wired every light. Installed every socket. And yeah, the plumbing? Flawless. Every corner of that house had something I touched with my own 2 hands. Every creak in the floorboards, every dripless faucet, it all whispered, "You did this." I wish I could say that pride was enough. But deep down, some part of me still wanted them to see it. Not just out of spite, but so they'd finally understand what I'd become. The opportunity came faster than I expected. Chuck and I were wrapping up another job, this time a kitchen overhaul for a couple downsizing from a huge house into something more manageable. We finished under budget, ahead of schedule, and they were thrilled. As we were cleaning up, the wife mentioned that the property across the street had just gone on the market. "Cute little place," she said. "Bit of water damage, though. Pipes are ancient. You'd love it, Wes, Rio project." She was right. I drove by that evening. Small house. Brick foundation. Fence yard. Just rough enough to need help, but not a total wreck. I called the agent that night. A week later, I owned it. Now here's where things get fun. Because 2 weeks after that, I got a call from my mom. She started casually, asking how I'd been, how Cody was, my dog, who they once called Mutt Trash, and whether I was staying busy. Then came the real reason. "Our neighbor passed away," she said, voice low. "Family's selling the house. It's the one across the street. You probably saw the sign?" I smiled. "I might have." "Well," she said, hesitant, "we were thinking of helping Casey and her boyfriend get started. You know, maybe set them up there for a while. Until they find their own place." I leaned back in my chair. "So, you want me to help?" She hesitated. "Well, you've got the tools. And the experience. If we cover the purchase, maybe you could. I don't know. Oversee some renovations? Maybe get a crew in there?" I let the silence hang. Then I said calmly, "You're too late." "What do you mean?" "I already bought it." Silence. Pure, delicious silence. "You bought the house across the street?" "Yep. 2 weeks ago." Her voice faltered. "Oh. I see. I'm turning it into a rental. Duplex, maybe? Haven't decided yet." She didn't respond right away. Then, "You should have told us. Like you told me I'd never amount to anything?" Click. Call ended. No goodbye. No proud of you. Just an abrupt hang-up and an even more abrupt end to whatever delusional HGTV fantasy she had of me flipping a house for her golden child. I should have been mad. I wasn't. Instead, I stood in the middle of that new house, smiled at the cracked ceiling, and whispered, "You're about to cause so much family drama. I'm so proud of you." 2 weeks after I bought the house across the street, I started renovations. Quiet ones. No big trucks, no flashy signage. Just me, my tools, and a contractor buddy named Rich who didn't ask questions, just showed up with a thermos and a nail gun. We kept things subtle on purpose. Because I knew exactly what would happen once my family realized I owned the place they wanted for Casey's fresh start. Spoiler, they didn't find out from me. They found out from the HOA. Apparently, when I filed a permit for structural changes to the back porch, it triggered a notice. And since my parents have always been nosy about anything with the words neighborhood or property value, they were the first to read it. The next morning, I woke up to 4 missed calls. 2 from Mom. 1 from Casey. And 1 from a number labeled Dad, new cell. They still didn't leave a single voicemail. Classic. I ignored the calls and kept working. Each day, Rich and I gutted a new room, replaced corroded copper lines with PX, added proper insulation, and sealed every flaw left by time and neglect. And every day, like clockwork, I noticed the curtains twitching across the street. "Mom," She'd peer out, then disappear. No one ever crossed the street. But the silence was louder than any screaming match we'd ever had. Then, a week later, something strange happened. I came home from a supply run and found a box on my porch. Inside? A roll of blue painter's tape, a new paintbrush, and a note in neat handwriting. For touch-ups. Thought you might need these. Mom. No apology. No explanation. Just tools. I stared at the box for a long time before setting it in the garage. I didn't throw it out. But I didn't use it either. Meanwhile, Casey posted a photo on Instagram, her and her boyfriend looking disappointed in front of a "for rent" sign. No caption. Just a sad emoji. And in the background? My house. Their dream house. Now firmly under new management. I didn't comment. But I screenshotted it. Because nothing says poetic justice like an accidental family selfie outside your own property. 3 days later, the storm came. Literal storm. Rain hammered the roofs, lightning danced across the street, and I sat on my couch sipping hot tea, watching Cody bark at thunder. Then came the text from Dad. Wes. Flooding again. Toilet backed up. Think the sump pump failed. We need help. Urgent. I put down my mug. Now this was the moment. I debated letting it sit for a while. Let them stew. But curiosity got the better of me. So I pulled on my boots, grabbed my tool bag, and walked across the street. The front yard was already soggy. Water pooled at the edges of the steps. I knocked once and let myself in. They didn't lock the door. Probably panicking. Mom appeared first, frazzled, holding a stack of soaked towels. Wes, oh, thank God. It's worse than last time. Dad stumbled out behind her. His socks squished. The basement's flooding too. I think it's the old pump. I raised a hand. I got it. No pleasantries. No hugs. Just business. They watched as I moved through the house, calm, methodical. Found the source. Same ancient pipe I'd warned them about last time. Only now, it had split near the base and was backing sewage into the lower bathroom. I didn't say I told you so. I just fixed it. They followed me to the basement where I unclogged the drain line, rebooted the pump, and replaced the valve with a part one had in my truck. They didn't speak. Not a word. Just stared. When I was done, I stood by the door. You should really consider a full repipe, I said. This patchwork isn't gonna hold forever. Dad gave a tired nod. Mom opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered. Would you ever consider coming back? For dinner, I mean? I looked at her. Then at the spot where sewage had seeped into their carpet. Then at my dry boots. And said, I'll think about it. I didn't go to that dinner. Not out of spite. I just didn't want to sit at a table where I'd once been the punchline, pretending the food tasted like forgiveness. Instead, I took Cody to the lake. We sat on the dock, his head in my lap, the sky bleeding orange into blue as I sipped cheap gas station coffee and watched the water do nothing special. But it was quiet. And peaceful. And mine. Everything I had, the truck, the house, the business, I'd built from the ground up. No handouts. No cheerleaders. No family applause. Just wrench turning, invoice printing, early mornings, and the occasional dog hair in my thermos. The next morning, I got a knock on my door. It was my mom. Not a text. Not a call. Not a, can you come by when you have time? She stood there holding a Tupperware container of baked ziti and a look that landed somewhere between shame and maybe he'll let me inside. I didn't move. She didn't either. After a moment, she said, Your father's trying to fix the guest shower again. I raised an eyebrow. Brave. She smirked. Foolish. Silence again. Then she held out the container. You're probably too busy to join us. But you always liked my ziti. I took it. Not because I wanted to forgive her, but because I missed the ziti. She nodded once and turned. No apology. No. We were wrong. But less pretending. That was new. Later that week, I had a job upstate and left Rich in charge of finishing the last stage of my duplex reno, paint, fixtures, staging photos. By the time I got back, we had 3 applicants. The second one was a young couple. Guy was a freelance artist, girl was studying to be a nurse. Just moved from another town. No drama, no entitled vibes. They saw the space. Loved the kitchen. And then she asked, "So, you're the property manager?" I smiled. "I'm the plumber." She blinked. "Oh. I mean, cool. You work for the owner?" I paused. "No. I am the owner." Something shifted in her expression. Respect, maybe? Or curiosity? Probably both. She smiled. "You're not just the plumber, are you?" I grinned. "Guess not." They signed the lease that night. 2 days later, I was walking Cody when I passed by my parents' place. Curtains were open. Inside, I saw my dad crouched in front of a toilet, holding a plunger like a sword. Mom was filming him. For what, I don't know. But they looked normal. Like 2 people who were finally realizing the world had moved on without them, and the kid they underestimated had quietly built a life across the street. One they couldn't buy. Or guilt. Or fix with a Sunday roast. I didn't wave. Just walked past. And for once, they didn't call out. 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Not a bill. Not a flyer. A formal envelope, thick paper, embossed seal. It was from the Homeowners Association. I thought it was another complaint, maybe Rich parked too close to the sidewalk again. But when I opened it, I laughed. Apparently, my parents had tried to contest something about the duplex conversion. A zoning issue. Probably just a desperate way to make things difficult. The letter said it had been denied. Reason: the new owner met all compliance standards, and in fact, completed renovations to city code, unlike the previous complaint filing party. At the bottom, the HOA chair had scribbled a personal note. "Whoever did the plumbing, hire them again. Absolute pro work." I took a picture. Texted it to my mom. No caption. She didn't reply. That same night, I got another text. From my dad. Just one line. "Our downstairs toilet's out again. Think you can take a look?" I stared at the screen. And typed. "Sure. My hourly rate's $180 now. Up front." No reply. Didn't need one. I didn't hear from them for a while after that. But then, as it always seems to happen, the universe delivered one last cherry on top. A real estate agent called me about a property going up for sale 3 blocks away. Nice corner lot. Fully gutted. Needed everything. As we walked the property, he mentioned, "Funny thing, sellers? It's the family that lives across the street from one of your rentals. Said they had a string of bad luck lately. Plumbing, debt, some personal stuff. Looking to downsize." I smiled. "I think I know the house." He raised an eyebrow. "Interested?" "Very." I bought it. Not out of spite. Out of pattern recognition. My parents? They'd always told me I'd never amount to anything. That I was a dumb plumber. With dirty boots and no ambition. Now, I own 3 homes in their neighborhood. And every single time they flush a toilet, shower, or run the dishwasher, they're relying on the same kid they once mocked. Me. 1 month later, Casey posted a family photo. All of them crowded into my parents' downsized condo. No smiles. Just a forced holiday pose in a dimly lit living room. Caption? "Holidays are better when you're close." I didn't comment. Just took another bite of pumpkin pie, turned up the jazz in my living room, and looked out across the street at the house they used to dream of. It was quiet. Tenants happy. Pipes humming. And me? Still just the plumber. The one who fixed the mess, and then bought the whole damn block.